there's no completion. Hello, and welcome to the Two Consoles Too Late podcast. I'm the host, Jackson Keebler, and I am Two Consoles Too Late. What does that mean? Here at this podcast, we look at the classics and the not-so-classics of retro video gaming, often for the very first time and with no nostalgia. And this is the first official video podcast of Two Consoles Too Late. And we are looking at the PS1 long box collection thus far. The first third, 33 games out of 102. We're going to take a look at the games in the collection so far, my impressions of the games, if I've played them, and some interesting factoids that I found along the way. We're also going to look at the three different box variants of the PS1 long box collection for some clarification and education. And we're also going to look at some box protectors that I get from retroprotection.com. And then we're also going to look at the financials of the PS1 long box collection so that the shareholders and the patrons of Two Consoles know that they're getting some value here at the podcast. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's go. All right, so before we jump into the PS1 long box collection, I got to do a video stick-it. Right? The first video stick-it ever. And I'm really excited because I get to share my parody of the Steve Jobs biography cover of me doing a stick-it. And the stick-it's going to myself. Because the process of doing this video, I just overthink everything. And this is just a few small examples here at the podcast of Two Consoles. So now I always joke that I don't do a video podcast because I have a face for radio. And here I am in all my glory. And I thought, okay, well, at some point in this video, I have to appear on camera. It's unavoidable. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I got to shower and shave, which I do regularly. All right, I do bathe. But for the purposes of this, I wanted to look nice. But then I was like, well, what am I going to wear? Should I wear like a geeky t-shirt? And I decided, you know what, I'm just going to wear what's comfortable. So for the PS1 long box live streams I do on Saturday mornings at 7:30 on YouTube and Twitch, be sure to check out the links. I just wear my hockey jersey. And it's my Pittsburgh Penguins jersey. And I started thinking, I was like, well, if I'm going to start doing this video podcasting more and more, I should get more hockey jerseys. And the reason I went down the hockey jersey route is because I'm a huge Cure fan. And during the Wild Mood Swings tour, Robert Smith wore a lot of hockey jerseys. And even at 46, I'm still a fanboy of Robert Smith, who just got a Grammy, which I thought was rather interesting for Songs of a Lost World. Was not a fan of that album. Anyway, back to this ticket. So I've just completely overthought everything here at the podcast when it comes to doing this video. And I've come here kicking and screaming. And it's been a learning experience. And if I sound frustrated or short of temper, there's a reason. It's because I'm just not used to this. And I'm going to take a look at the analytics after I release this video and kind of see if I do more of these. But to me, in my overthinking, I just have to say, stick it! And there it is. But that all being said, I have a Patreon, and I did a full page of notes talking about the PS1 long box games. It's just sort of which game it is, when it was released, and some sort of factoid. And I did it on my typewriter, and you can check out that over at the Patreon at patreon.com/2consoles2late. Or now that we're in video, you can scan the QR code right there, and that'll get you to the Patreon. So there is something to be said about this video podcasting. All right, so what we have here is my spreadsheet that I put together in Google Sheets, and it's a good tool that I have for the PS1 long box collection. I'm able to check which games I have and which games I don't have if I'm looking at a lot of games or whatnot. So right now I have all the games in the collection checked, and a price list populates from price charting. I've got two price charting lists. I have one from 2024 and I have one from 2025. So the price list populates from the 225 price charting prices. And right now, all 33 games in the PS1 long box collection comes to $922.12 according to price charting. Now this yellow column I have here, this is what I actually paid for the games. As of right now, this is current. I've paid $709.14 for all 33 games. A lot of these games came from the shop Goodwills. But then over here, I'm keeping a list of like how much I've spent on shipping, how much I've spent on handling, how much I've spent on, sourcing out manuals, just to kind of give myself an idea. And in shipping, so far, I've paid $110.46, and handling, I've paid $32. And a lot of that is from the shop Goodwills. So I think I've only gotten like one lot of games not from the internets. So I'm trying to keep those costs down. But I mean, let's see here, $922 and actually paid $709. I think that's pretty good so far. I had the budgeted cost of the entire library here currently at $4,907. My budget for the PS1 long box collection was more like $6,000. So it's quite the investment, and it's going to take it's going to take some time. And down here I have some figures that I did when I first put the spreadsheet together. The big game in the collection, of course, is Starblade Alpha. Price charting has it right now at $625, and that's about 13% of the entire cost of the collection. So this is a great little tool for me, just to kind of keep track of my spending. And if I'm looking at a lot of games, I just come over here and I can just pick out what games are in the lot and see how much they're worth in price charting and compare it to the price online. So anyway, a savings of $200, I'd say that's pretty good if, me being me. All right, so there are three variants in the PS1 long box collection. The first is what I call the ridged case. And the spine of the game case actually has like a plastic ridge. And when you run your thumb over it, it makes a little sound. And then once you open up the game, you can see that ridged plastic piece on the inside once more. So we open up the game, and there it is with the plastic ridge. This is Assault Rigs, and it also has the foam insert. I haven't looked at sourcing those yet, but that is the first variant in the PS1 long box collection, what I call the ridged spine. Now here we see the artwork is sort of coming off on Assault Rigs. I haven't glued this one back down, but it's a common issue I'm seeing with the PS1 long box collection. All right, so next is what I call the faked ridge box, or it's just simply the cardboard box. This variant of the PS1 long box collection, it's printed to make it look like it has that plastic piece, but it does not have that plastic piece. It's just simply a cardboard box printed to make it look that way. And then once you open up the cardboard box, you can see that there is no plastic spine on the inside. It's just simply a cardboard box. Once you flip open that manual, though, looks like there's a space there for the foam insert, which Chessmaster 3D does not have. So this is simply what I call the cardboard box, or the faked ridged box. And last but not least, we have the plastic jewel case. This is one of the variants that I really don't like in the PS1 long box collection. This is Alien Trilogy. This jewel case is actually intact. Nothing is broken. Everything is as it should be. But a common issue, especially with the PS1 long box collection, and as well as Sega Saturn games, is that these cases break and crack very easily. And then once you take out the manual, you can see that over time, scratches develop on the plastic of these jewel cases. So far in the collection of the 33 games I have, I think 10 of the games have these jewel cases. And I'm going to have to look at replacements at some point. I'm just not going to do it right away. You can see there that the plastic is heavily scratched. It's not cracked. Once again, the Alien Trilogy is in good nick given its age. But replacement cases can be had. I've seen them on the Amazons. However, retroprotection.com does not have them. So I'm trying to find a good source for those. If you know a good source, please drop me a comment. All right, so we're going to look at the long box plastic protectors that I get from retroprotection.com. I'm going to throw a QR code up here on the screen, but if you want to go to the website, it is retroprotection.com. They're inexpensive, and I would say they're a must-have. And they're very simple, very easy to assemble. Just 3 simple tabs on each side of the box protector. Once one side is assembled, just grab your game, slip in the game, and then fold down the flaps, and your game is protected. And once again, if you're going to invest, let's say $5,000 in a video game collection like this, I would say that these box protectors are a must-have. All right, the first game in the PS1 long box collection is Agile Warrior F111X, released in 1995. Funny factoid about this game is that Tommy Tallarico did the sound effects, and if you know anything about Tommy Tallarico, he is embroiled in some controversy right now surrounding the Amico. The developer of this game was Virgin. Of all the flight sims so far in the PS1 long box collection, I would say that this one is the simplest that I played, albeit briefly, and I'm probably going to come back to this one soon, probably for a live stream over on the YouTubes. All right, next is Alien Trilogy from 1996. This was developed by Acclaim. Funny factoid about this game is that after you die in the game, there is multiple FMV death sequences. From this footage, it's a little dark, and to play this game, I actually had to hook it up to my retro LCD monitor because I just couldn't make out what was going on in the game. All right, next is Assault Rigs from 1996. I just did the PS1 long box live stream on this one. This was developed by Psygnosis. This game looked a lot like Tron, whatever the game is from Tron, like Tank Wars or Tank Battles or whatever. I didn't play it for too long. I played it for about 30 minutes. Very rudimentary graphics, but for what it wasn't bad. All right, next is Air Combat from 1995. This was developed by Namco. This was a port of the arcade game. My factoid on this one was only with nonfiction. I don't know what the hell that meant, but I did not hook up my Namco Negicon controller to play this game. Once again, it's another flight sim of many in the PS1 long box collection thus far. When it comes to flight sims, I think I'd rather have a joystick, and I cannot find a joystick that works with the PS1 or the PS2. All right, next is Bases Loaded 96 from 1996. This was developed by, I always mispronounce this, Jalico, whatever it is. And Bases Loaded 96, it's a well-known series of baseball games, but Bases Loaded 96 was actually the last one in the series. This game I did not like very much, and I have to give it a stick it for not being very good. All right, Battle Arena Toshinden 2. This was released in 1995. This is Battle Arena Toshinden 2, not 1. When it comes to fighting games, I am absolutely horrible at them, whether it be Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Tekken, and especially this one. But I managed to win the match that I played for this video. Funny factoid about this game is there was a misprint in the manual, and apparently IG's special moves were printed twice, and one of the fighters' special moves wasn't even printed at all. All right, Bust a Move 2, also known as Puzzle Bobble 2. This was developed by Taito. This is like one of those like little puzzle games you would play on your phone, but this one was on console. It's a complete time waster, not a lot there. Probably never going to play this one again. Probably going to do a live stream of it, and it's going to be another short live stream. All right, Chessmaster 3D. This was developed by Mindscape. Interesting factoid about this game, the chess engine for the game itself is actually a 32-bit engine that is the same as Chessmaster 4000. Basically, what it meant to me is that it's really smart, and this game absolutely kicked my ass. And to that, I have to say, stick it! All right, Cyberspeed from 1995. This was developed by Mindscape. Looked a lot like Wipeout, but it was not Wipeout. The cars ride on some sort of rail system. I did not do very well at this game. I guess it's a vehicular combat game. Interesting factoid about this game that there are fictional commercials between the races for fictional products. DEFCON 5 from 1995. This was developed by Data East. When I did the live stream of this, I thought it was a Doom clone, but it's not actually a Doom clone. It's actually some sort of strategic defense game. Basically, my biggest problem was trying to just find the control room. And in my live stream on the YouTubes, it took me, I think, 20 minutes to a half an hour just to find the control room. And through a brief search of factoids about this game, I found that others had that issue as well. So DEFCON 5 is not a great game, but it is not actually a Doom clone. It is a strategic defense game. Next is Descent from 1995. There was actually factoid about this one. There was a spin-off from the series called Free Space. This was developed by Parallax Software. I remember when this game came out on PC, it was kind of a big deal. I played this game for about 5 to 10 minutes, not very good at it. But it's a game I always wanted to play and get into. So I'd like to do another deep dive on this one. Destruction Derby, another game from Psygnosis. This game, funny factoid, was released for the PlayStation, and it was supposed to be released for the Sega Saturn, but the Sega Saturn port was canceled. And I think I heard recently on another retro video game podcast that the Saturn port has turned up, and it can be had to be played on the Sega Saturn. But Destruction Derby, the game itself, I was not a fan of. You just go in circles, and I died rather quickly, and I'm probably never going to play this game ever again. Extreme Pinball. This game was developed by High Score and Epic Games. It was criticized on the PlayStation for having large borders, which I thought was kind of interesting because I saw no problem with the borders whatsoever. But at the end of the day, all it is a pinball game on a video game console. FIFA Soccer 96. Don't have to tell you the release date. It's 1996. Interesting factoid about this. Apparently, you can run through the referee. I did not try to do that on my brief playthrough of the game. I'm not a big fan of soccer/football. I don't know much about it, and I've never played any of the FIFA games. This was developed by EA Sports. So being an EA Sports game, it's a good sports game, but when it comes to soccer, that's not really my bag. All right, Gex. This was released in 1996 by Crystal Dynamics. It is the only platformer that I have in the PS1 long box collection, and it was a welcome change from the Flight Sims and Doom clones and whatnot in the PS1 long box collection. I didn't make it very far. I made it to like the third level. I'd like to sit down once more with this game and do another deep dive. But however, the commentary coming from the Gecko, quoting various TV programs and movies, became a little annoying. Gunship. Gunship was developed by Microprose. And a funny little factoid about that is that Microprose is in Hunt Valley, Maryland, which is about 20 minutes north of me in Baltimore. Gunship, you are the pilot of an Apache helicopter. As a kid, I used to love helicopter flight sims, and so I thought I was really going to get into this one, but the realism is way high, and I had a lot of difficulty in my limited playthrough. Jupiter Strike. This game was developed by Taito, and this game has been universally panned. It only got like something like I saw somewhere it got a score of like 2 out of 10, which is really bad. It looks a lot like Star Fox, tries to play like Star Fox, but it is not Star Fox. And I died rather quickly, and it's a game I'm probably never going to pick up ever again. Kiliak the DNA Imperative. There's actually a sequel to this game called Epidemic. This was developed by Genki. This is a Doom clone. It's a game that I enjoyed greatly here at the podcast. But resource management was a thing, and I think I made it as far as like the 8th or 9th level. But I was way too low on health, and I couldn't get very far. But I really, really enjoyed this game, and I'm very curious to pick up the sequel, Epidemic. Lemons. I'm calling it Lemons 3D, but it's actually 3D Lemons. 3D Lemons actually has ads in-game for Jelly Belly Candy. It was developed by Psygnosis and Clockwork Games. It's just a 3D version of the original Lemons. And the version you see here is I just ran the demo. I didn't actually try to play the game. MLBPA, bottom of the 9th. It's a baseball game developed by Konami. This is another one. It's not very good, but an interesting factoid. It has the MLB players, but it does not have the teams from MLB. So you can be Baltimore versus New York, but you can't be the Orioles versus the Yankees. Once again, not a good baseball game here at the podcast. NBA Shootout. When it comes to basketball, I'm not very good. I think the farthest I ever got was either Double Dribble or NBA Jam. But NBA Shootout was developed by 989 Studios and Sony Interactive. And the player on the cover of NBA Shootout is Sam Cassell of the Houston Rockets. NHL Face-Off. This was developed once again by Sony Interactive. I'm a huge hockey fan, and I loved playing this game. When I played it, I played the Penguins versus the Caps, the old rivalry. You can check out the live stream over at the YouTubes. But this game, it has the full teams and the rosters. But it declined against EA Sports and their growing library of sports games. All right, PGA Tour 1996. Obviously, it was released in 1996. This was released by EA Sports. This is the precursors to the Tiger Woods series. Funny factoid. The golf pros in the game were all digitized using actual video footage of the golf pros. This game, it's not very forgiving. If your swing is just a little bit off, you shank it into the woods. But I could see that this is kind of the bones of the coming Tiger Woods series from EA Sports. The Raiden Project. This was developed by Saibu Kaihatsu. It's actually an arcade port of the Raiden shoot 'em up games. Raiden 2 was never actually released until this game. I'm not very good at shoot 'em ups whatsoever, but I do like playing them every once in a while. You can check out the live stream once again over at the YouTubes. This is another game I'd like to sit down and get some progression on, but unfortunately, I do not have my Miracle of Save States when it comes to the Raiden Project. Revolution X, developed by Midway and Acclaim. This is a shooter. It was originally conceived as a Jurassic Park game, but it turned into the shooter and somehow got associated with Aerosmith, and I'm not a fan of the band Aerosmith. Ridge Racer. This is the first game I ever bought in the PS1 long box collection. It was developed by Namco. It is compatible with the Negicon controller. I did not like this game, even with the Negicon controller. If I'm going to play a racing game, I'm probably, especially on the PlayStation, I'm probably just going to head on over to Gran Turismo, the go-to racing game. Drive-in simulator of the PlayStation. Road Rash, a very popular vehicular combat game. This was developed by Electronic Arts. At the time, they were trying to develop John Madden, and they had this game on the radar. It was kind of a strange title coming from Electronic Arts. This game has a huge cult following. It has multiple sequels, and I'm definitely going to get into this one on the live streams over at the YouTubes. Shockwave Assault. Shockwave Assault was developed by, once again, Electronic Arts. It was a series of games that was supposed to be developed for the 3DO. The 3DO was developed by Trip Hawkins. I came to this game because I was looking at games on the Whatnot app, of all places, and I saw Shockwave Assault, and I thought, what is this? It's a futuristic rail shooter. Well, it's not really a rail shooter. It's kind of a futuristic space flight sim. But this is actually a double disc game. And the PS1 long box, the actual box is not set up to hold two discs. So one goes in the slot and one goes in an envelope. Top Gun Fire at Will. This was developed by Spectrum Holobyte. And interesting factoid about this is that in the FMV, the actor James Tolkien from the movie Top Gun, also known as Stinger, makes an appearance. He is the only actor from the movie to actually appear in a Top Gun video game. If you don't know James Tolkien, he is the principal from Back to the Future. Triple Play 97. This one is another sports title coming from EA Sports. Of all the baseball games so far in the PS1 long box collection that I have, this one has been the best. And on the cover, it features Tony Gwynn from the Padres. Tony Gwynn, sadly, though, passed away in 2014. Twisted Metal. I think a lot of people know this vehicular combat game. It's very popular. It has multiple sequels, but it does have a long box variant. So far in the PS1 long box collection, this is the quote-unquote banger. Price Charting has this game at $81.75, but that's not what I paid for it. Warhawk. This was developed by Sony Interactive. Factoid, this is one of the very first flight sims developed for the Sony PlayStation. In my brief play, didn't get very far with it. Wasn't a fan of the game, but this is one of the first flight sims, and you can kind of see it in the game. And last but not least, we have Sega Rally for the Sega Saturn. Wait, what? How did that get in there? No, sorry, that's a mistake. All my long box games are getting mixed up. No, the next game is not this. And last but not least, good old Wipeout, developed by Psygnosis. Two Consoles Too Late 2025's Game of the Year. factoid about good old Wipeout. If you did not listen to the episode I did on Wipeout, an early version of the game Wipeout appeared in the movie Hackers, which is a wonderful film that I highly recommend, with a very young Angelina Jolie and a very young Johnny Lee Miller. Auction alert. All right, so we can't do a video podcast without doing an auction alert, right? One of the first video auction alerts here at the podcast. So we're going to pop on over to the shop Goodwills and see what's going on. There's a lot to look at, and I'm just going to go through my bookmarks real quick here. So the first auction we have is coming from San Antonio. I'm not going to do the Pee-wee's Big Adventure quote, but it's a copy of Jumpin' Flash. It's at $90. It's got 0 bids, and it just bothers the crap out of me that these Goodwills just set their price at like price charting or what, thinking that someone's just going to jump in there and grab it. If someone does, great. I'm not. It just kind of annoys the crap out of me. I just kind of wish they would just let the marketplace kind of do its thing. But we can see in this picture that the cover art's peeling off, which is sort of a common issue. So that's another big reason I would pass on that one. Moving on, we still have Gotcha Force here. It's coming from the Goodwill of Central and Coastal Virginia. 1 day, 23 hours left on this auction. 7 bids. It's at $553. Guessing this is going to get that $750 mark. They did their due diligence, and they got some pictures of those corners, and those corners look pretty good. So I'm going to keep my eye on that one. What else we got here? We got, Sega Sports Dreamcast. This does not have AV or power cables. It's just got the controller and the console. I can't tell if that's a VMU. I don't think there's a VMU in that controller, but without those accessories right now, that's at $89 with 19 bids. That's coming from the Goodwill of Southern New England. A sold one, one just sold for $160. Let me check my bookmarks. Yeah, here it is. $161, Goodwill in North Georgia, but that had the AV and the power cables, controller, no VMU. Power's on, not fully tested. I keep my eye on these whenever they pop up because I kind of have some hopes that these the Sega Sports Dreamcast start going for $200, but that's never going to happen. So anyway, just kind of keeping my eye on those. But this lot is really interesting, and I think it's kind of funny considering I just picked up a copy of Gex and it didn't have the manual. And here we have a lot of video game manuals for the PlayStation. Most notably Castlevania, but it's got long box manuals. So you got Jumpin' Flash, Battle Arena Toshinden, ESPN Extreme Games, Wipeout, and Gex, and they look like they're in pretty good nick. I mean, I when I first saw this, I thought, okay, like, are these duplicates? But no, these are the real thing. So right now, this is at what, $20, with 4 days left on the auction. I'll be curious to see what this goes for. I'm not bidding, but that's coming from the Greater Cleveland and Eastern Central Ohio Goodwill. It's a little cold up there, I imagine, but one of these auctions, it's very cold. This is a copy of Chrono Trigger Complete Inbox CIB. This is coming from the Goodwill of Greater Milwaukee and Chicago. So it's 20 degrees here. It's probably in the negative whatevers. Probably like -5 or something. I don't know. But it's cold up there. Anyway, they got complete in box Chrono Trigger, Super Nintendo, 4 days, 22 hours left on this auction, 27 bids, $789. I'm going to guess that's going for $1,500, $2,000. I mean, just look at that. I mean, still got the plastic on the cartridge. I mean, it might be new in box, but they're not saying that. They're just saying complete in box. So definitely keeping an eye on that just to kind of see what it goes for. Chrono Trigger, great JRPG, just not my kind of game. Great soundtrack too. All right, but we do have some PS1 long box games also coming from that goodwill of Milwaukee and Chicago. We got Loaded, Jumpin' Flash, looks a little faded. I'm not sure if that's the photography or if that's the game. I do have a max bid on this little one. And plenty of time left on this. There's 4 days, 22 hours left on this auction. It's only at $10, but I think Price Chart has that game at it's like $80 or $90. I have to check my spreadsheet. And Loaded, that's like a $30, $40 game. So got a bid on that. There's also copies of Descent, and there's this copy of Tekken. But this kind of totally illustrates my point when it comes to these jewel cases for long box games and Saturn games. First off, all right, the manual you can see is the spine is just really in bad shape. But the case itself, it's missing a huge portion right here. And, you know, you can see the scratches here in the reflection of the light. So this copy of Tekken is not in good shape. If I was to pick this up, I would definitely have to replace that case. But given the condition of the manual, the condition of the case, that's a hard pass. And I believe my local retro video game store has a copy of that. So remember, support your local retro video game stores. All right, so that's it. That is the podcast of Two Consoles Too Late, the first video podcast. We made it. And it has been quite the learning curve, but thank you for watching. And thank you for listening. You can check me out on the interwebs. Just go to Google and type in Two Consoles Too Late, and there I will be. I got Facebooks and Instagrams and all that. I also have a Patreon. And you can check out all the goodies over there. The bonus podcast of Going Long, as well as Typewriter Manifestos. But if you do support the podcast monetarily, I'll show you all the goodies. You get a signed typewritten postcard from me, as well as a signed Walter Day trading card, and also a Miracle of Save States magnet. Yeah, so got a whole bunch of them. And I'll give you a shout out here on the airwaves. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm not doing anything. I'm not playing anything. I'm going to bed. So there it is. All right. As always, have a good one. I love you, and goodbye.